Think about the last group trip you took. Someone had to pick the dates that worked around 5 different schedules. Someone had to find the place everyone could actually afford. Someone had to send the fourth follow-up message when half the chat went quiet for 3 days straight. And someone had to be the one who finally said, okay, I'm just going to book it, because the group was never going to land on a decision on its own. Chances are, if you're watching this, that someone was you. Not because you raised your hand for it. Not because you sat down one day and decided this would be your role. It just somehow always ends up being you. So here's the question worth actually sitting with. Why you? Why does one specific person in almost every friend group end up holding all of this? The memory, the planning, the checking in, while everyone else gets to simply show up. Is it a personality thing? Bad luck? Or is something deeper going on that you've never really stopped to look at? Let's go through the signs first, one at a time, and then get into where this actually comes from. Because the why here is more interesting and honestly more useful than the signs themselves. Sign 1. You're the one who remembers everything. Not just birthdays, although you remember those too, usually before the person even mentions it. You remember that one friend has a big presentation coming up this week. You remember that someone's dog has been sick, that another friend mentioned, almost in passing, 3 weeks ago, that things had gotten tense with their sibling. Nobody assigned you this job. There was no meeting where the group decided you're in charge of keeping track of everyone's life. Your brain just quietly keeps a running file on the people around you, updating it constantly, and you check in on people without even registering it as effort. Except it is effort. It's just effort you've done for so long that it stopped feeling like a choice. Sign 2. You're the default planner. Whether you actually want to be or not, you've watched it happen dozens of times. The group chat goes back and forth for 2 full days about where to eat, or when to meet, or whether Saturday or Sunday works better, and nobody commits to anything. Everyone says either way works for me, which somehow means nothing gets decided. And at some point, usually after watching the conversation loop for the 3rd time, you just step in. Okay, 7 p.m., this place, see you there. Not because you love being the one who plans everything. Not because you enjoy the logistics, but because someone has to end the loop, and you've noticed time and time again that it's rarely anyone but you. Sign 3. You feel guilt, not just disappointment when you can't show up. This is a subtle one, and it's worth slowing down on. Most people, when they cancel plans or go quiet for a few days, feel a normal kind of bad. Bummed they're missing out, maybe a little embarrassed if it's last minute. But for you, it's different. There's a specific kind of dread that creeps in, almost like a warning bell, that the group might lose its footing without you there holding a piece of it together. As if your absence isn't just your absence, it's a small structural risk to the whole thing. And if you're honest with yourself, that feeling tells you less about how fragile your friend group actually is, and a lot more about how much weight you've silently, invisibly taken on without ever really agreeing to it out loud. Sign 4. People bring you their problems, but you rarely bring them yours. You're the one people call at midnight when something falls apart, a breakup, a fight with a parent, a bad day that spiraled into a bad week. And you're good at it. Genuinely good. You stay calm when someone else is panicking. You ask the one question that actually helps them think clearly. You know when to give advice and when to just listen. But flip the situation and something changes. When something's wrong in your life, you hesitate before saying anything. You downplay it. You tell yourself it's not that serious, or that everyone's already got enough going on, or that you don't want to be one more thing somebody has to manage. So you end up being the emotional landing pad for an entire group of people while quietly going without one yourself. Sign 5. You carry a tiredness that has nothing to do with how much you've slept. This is the one that tends to sneak up on people because it doesn't look like burnout in the obvious sense. You're not necessarily overworked. You might even have a pretty easy week, schedule-wise. But there's still this low hum of fatigue that follows you around. The specific exhaustion of being the reliable one. The one who's expected to have it together. The one who doesn't really get to have an off week because if you go quiet, or seem a little distant, or don't respond as fast as usual, people notice. Not in an accusing way. Usually they're just checking in, a little confused, because it's out of character. But even that gentle, hey, you good? Can feel like pressure. Because it's a reminder that you're not really allowed to be the one who's struggling. You're the one who holds space for other people struggling. So why does this land on certain people and not others? Why does one friend in the group end up quietly carrying all of this, while everyone else moves through their friendships without giving it a second thought? It's almost never random, and it's almost never really about personality in the way people assume. This role tends to form early, often in childhood, long before friend group dynamics were even a concept you'd have used to describe it. It tends to show up in people who learned, sometimes very young, That paying close attention to the people around them, reading moods, anticipating needs, staying one step ahead of a problem before it became a bigger problem, kept things calmer or safer or more predictable. Maybe you were the oldest sibling and you got used to keeping an eye on everyone younger than you. Maybe home life had periods of unpredictability and staying alert, staying useful, staying the one who has it together felt like the safest place to stand. Maybe you simply noticed early on that when you took care of things, less went wrong. Whatever the specific origin, the pattern doesn't just disappear once you grow up and start building friendships as an adult. It follows you. It quietly reshapes itself to fit new relationships, new group chats, new dynamics, and before you know it, you've slid into a role that nobody ever officially handed you, but that you've never really stopped playing either. And here's the tricky part. Because you're good at it, because you make it look effortless, the people around you often don't realize how much you're actually carrying. Not because they don't care, simply because you've never made it visible. You've made it look easy on purpose, sometimes without even meaning to. There's also something worth naming here. This role can feel oddly comforting, even as it wears you down. Being needed is not a bad feeling. Being the one people trust, the one who gets it, the one who's dependable in a world that often isn't, that can feel like proof of your worth, proof that you matter to the people around you, which is exactly why it's so hard to put down, even when it's exhausting. It's not just a burden. Somewhere along the way, it also became part of how you understand your own value. But here's what's worth sitting with. None of this makes you a burden to your friends, and it doesn't mean you're broken or too much or someone who needs to be fixed. It means you've been quietly carrying weight that was never actually shared out loud, never openly acknowledged, never split evenly among the people who benefit from it. And weight that was never named can't be renegotiated until you're the one who names it. So what does that actually look like? It starts small. You're allowed to forget a plan sometimes. You're allowed to say, out loud, I don't have the bandwidth to organize this one. Can someone else take it? You're allowed to let a message sit unanswered for a day without spiraling about whether the group will be okay without your immediate input. You're allowed every once in a while to be the one who needs checking on, the one who gets asked, hey, are you okay? Instead of always being the one asking it. And this is the part that matters most. The friends who are actually good for you, the ones worth keeping around long term, are not going to fall apart the one time you step back. They're not relying on your effort because they're incapable. They've just gotten used to you doing it the same way you got used to doing it, which means the moment you stop, even briefly, isn't a crisis. It's an invitation. An invitation for someone else to finally pick up the thing you've been carrying quietly for years. You don't have to earn your place in a friend group by being the most useful person in it. You don't have to keep proving your worth through how much you remember, how well you plan, how steady you stay when everyone else is falling apart. Sometimes the most important thing you can do for your friendships and for yourself is simply stop, put the weight down for a moment, and see who actually picks it up. The friends who are really good for you won't need you to hold everything together every single time. They'll just be relieved when you finally let them try.